Are your people working hard but not reaching their full potential? The problem is not effort, it is development. At the Modern Observer Group, we transform workforce development into real performance. Our human-centered achievement programs help your team think better, communicate stronger, and execute at a higher level. That means higher employee engagement, stronger leadership, and measurable results across your organization. If you want a workforce that performs, leads, and delivers, it is time to invest in your people. Visit modernobserver.com and discover how the Modern Observer Group helps you build a workforce that wins.
Welcome to another edition of Carnivore Radio. I'm your host, Jeff Sherman, along with Dr. Eric Lopkin. And I think the first thing we should touch on, which maybe only the doctor can help me out on, is basically the Virginia vote with redistricting. I mean, it's almost a 50-50 state, and they went from X amount of Republican potential representatives to one. I really don't understand how that's constitutional. And that's my first question to you. The second is, the Democrats always talk about democracy. I mean, if this thing gets out of hand, it's got real negative consequences. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong at all. Let's face it, for decades, the Democrats have been experts at gerrymandering. They gerrymandered New York. They gerrymandered California. They gerrymandered Connecticut. Most of the deep blue states are deep blue because of gerrymandering, not because of the number of votes each party actually has. In fact, Connecticut, for example, there are actually more independents than there are either Democrats or Republicans. Democrats and Republicans are almost evenly split. And yet, because of gerrymandering, Connecticut has no Republican representation.
Well, how come that is not, especially with this Virginia situation, in front of the Supreme Court? I mean, how is this constitutional? It's insane. I don't get it. I mean, they rule on should pheasants be allowed to, live in a whatever, and they can't rule on this. What the heck's going on?
Well, the problem is the Supreme Court, as you said, rules on what the Constitution says about something. The Constitution is silent on this because our founding fathers never imagined a corrupt party doing this to steal power. So I don't know that the Supreme Court actually can do anything unless Congress actually passes an amendment. And there's no way at this point for an amendment to get through, because you need not only 2/3 of the Congress to vote for a constitutional amendment, you also need the majority of states to vote for one.
That I agree with. I think there is. I can't imagine there's not some linkage to the Constitution, equal representation, so on and so forth. I can't imagine this not going to the Supreme Court.
Oh, I'm sure at some point it will go to the Supreme Court. I think the court will be forced to address it. What happens, though, unfortunately, I think this is going to be something like Roe v. Wade, where the Constitution doesn't actually say something about the issue that the case is about, so the justices are going to have to extrapolate. Now, right now, given a 6-3 majority, conservative majority, I think the court would come down against gerrymandering. But remember, that's also going to affect a number of states that swung red. Texas started gerrymandering. Oklahoma.
Whoa. No, wait. There is a difference because I'm not saying it was completely kosher, but at least it was tied to the census. Okay. And
No, it wasn't tied to the census. That's the problem. The census, they had already redistricted based on the 2020 census. The current shifts are actually due to population shifts since the census. What the Supreme Court is going to have to do is say, yes, a state has the right to redistrict based on population change between the 10-year censuses.
but I guess what my point is, at least it was based on something.
Yes.
Okay. This is just pulled from, from the sky. I mean, there's no correlation to anything. And what's her name? The new governor is completely insane.
Well, I think that's going to come back to bite them, because that's what held up California's redistricting, is that they did not have any legitimate reason for doing a redistricting. And the courts did put that on hold. They haven't.
So wait, California is on hold? I was not aware on that.
California has been on hold. The redistricting has not gone through. I'm not sure what's going to happen with it. But the courts are going to have to decide whether or not it is legal. I think Virginia will face the same type of scrutiny, but because, well, California had a bunch of other problems, they tried to bypass their own processes to do this.
Shocking.
Virginia actually did follow the legal processes within the state to do this, but you can't bring a court case against it until it actually happens. So there was no way to block this prior to yesterday's vote. Now we're going to see what happens in the courts, because I guarantee the opposition will bring court cases. Will the cases be able to be resolved prior to the midterms? That I don't know.
Well, we'll have to stay tuned, but I'm really shocked at the party of democracy. I don't know, maybe they lied to me. And also just another instance where Barack Hussein Obama cannot shut the you-know-what up. I mean, most presidents, George W. was not a big fan of his, but at least he went into painting, okay? Carter built houses. Clinton went to Epstein's Island. I mean, at least, so anyway, it's just not good. And if it does spiral down, then there's no holding it back. Then, you can redistrict all you want and tit for tat, but we'll see how that works out. Speaking of redistricting, this does not apply, obviously, because it's the Senate, but there should be an intelligence test. And unfortunately, Connecticut suffers from that. Chris Murphy, as an educator, I can kind of determine to some degree, levels of intelligence. He's not exactly raising the bar in terms of Mensa candidacy. He's a dumbass. I think he got, and you said this on terrestrial radio, that he got, so intoxicated with his own power that he can never, go away because he's from Connecticut, blah, blah, blah. I think he got drunk on that, and he was in Europe trashing America. And then I think he had a tweet on X about basically the blockade and certain ships getting through. And he goes, awesome. I never thought you said this like 4 weeks ago, whatever, who really cares exactly when, that Nate Silver gave him a 0% chance of winning any kind of Democratic primary or the basically becoming their candidate. I think it's less than zero. I think he's a moron and he's a disgrace to Connecticut. Not that Blumenthal's that much better. Your thoughts? A moron. Yeah. An absolute moron.
Chris Murphy is the ultimate example of a political opportunist. He was essentially placed in the Senate by the Connecticut Democratic Party. He had no ability. He has accomplished nothing.
Zero.
As a senator. And again, he is safe in his seat because Connecticut is so deep blue.
Okay, now, wait a second. Let me ask you a question. Connecticut, we talk about higher education, was supposedly, the bastion of higher, Yale and blah, blah, all the list goes on. Yeah, I got it. It's deep blue, but this guy's an idiot. He's an embarrassment.
He is, but let's face facts. He is the product of a Connecticut education. And despite Connecticut's state legislatures, federal legislators, all claiming that they care so much about education, it simply isn't true. They're great at throwing money at the problem.
Oh, God. Whoa. That's really amazing, because to me, I was shocked. I thought UConn, obviously very good school, and, enrollment's soaring. They're like really deep in the hole. Like, how does that even happen?
Yeah,
they spend more money than a drunken sailor.
UConn is a great example. UConn is one of the worst run educational institutions in the country. They keep having to be bailed out by state taxpayers. More than that, all anybody across the country knows about UConn is the UConn Huskies. They're known for their sports program.
Correct.
This is a sports program that loses on an annual basis an average of $6 million a year.
Fantastic.
In some cases, because of mismanagement, such as there was a conflict between the school's management and a former sports coach. That particular year, I believe it was 2 years ago, the school lost $42 million
That's all.
on their sports program. Meanwhile, I've worked with a number of businesses that have gotten interns from UConn.
You mentioned that.
Yeah, UConn students are completely unprepared for the real world.
But can I interject one thing, Doctor? How about, I know you told me this, that lawsuit of a UConn graduate who was functionally illiterate.
No, it wasn't a UConn graduate. It was a UConn student. I believe she might be a sophomore right now. I believe she was a freshman at the time. Graduated from the Hartford public school system as a valedictorian and was functionally illiterate.
Awesome.
And UConn gave her an academic scholarship.
Beautiful. And I want to even elaborate on that because, I'm just retired from that. I was a professor at a Connecticut college. I'm not going to name it. So the enrollment was declining. It's a public university. That's the only reason I bring it up, right? And I go, how are all these buildings being built? Like, I don't understand. Like, what's going on? And I think it's the same thing. There's no management. There's no fiscal response. It's just a money train. That who gives a shit if enrollment's down? Let's build another building.
No,
Hello, really?
Yeah, the legislature keeps pouring money into it with no guardrails. No oversight. This is actually something I have discussed with numerous legislatures. And they said, well, we care about our education, so we have to give them more money. We have to bail them out. It's like, no, that's just digging the hole deeper. When you're in a hole this deep, the first thing you do is stop digging. And the legislature does not understand that. The public school system in Connecticut basically promotes people. They call it social promotion. It's irrelevant of their grades, and yet they claim to have such a great education system because they're basing that rating, as many education ratings are, based on their graduation rate. Well, when you're not counting their grades in graduation, of course you've got a great graduation rate.
Let me put some teeth into that because, it beats the alternative. Being older than you, Dr. Lopkin, I remember when I was a kid, like a real young kid, and the big thing about Connecticut was, it might be a little bit more. Now it's a lot more expensive, but we have such a great educated workforce. Yeah, that train has left. That's BS.
Yeah,
there's no companies locating to Connecticut. Every state has a I think Connecticut might even be behind. How do you like that?
Yeah, no,
I'm dead serious.
Connecticut had for years what they called the Connecticut brain drain,
Oh,
which
okay.
was students would go to Connecticut schools, get their education, and then leave the state.
Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you?
Exactly. The legislature, of course, keeps passing laws that make Connecticut more and more unable to compete in today's economy. People are leaving the state, and they are actually in a state of denial about this. I had a conversation with someone over about a meeting they had recently with the Connecticut Director of Economic Development. And the Director of Economic Development was talking about how Connecticut is a great place to work. Everybody wants to come to Connecticut. Meanwhile, the day after that, the Hartford Business Journal published a story about how Connecticut is losing jobs, losing businesses.
Well, that's the whole thing about these people are not tied to any reality. They may not even worked in the private sector. I'm being totally objective, and I want to throw it at you. I'm dead and not play acting. I could not imagine a major company, corporation, saying, we got all these in Texas and Florida and blah, 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 blah. I think Connecticut's our choice. I mean, I cannot imagine unless they're have a drug problem. Like, are you out of your mind?
It doesn't happen. Connecticut Governor Ned Lamont actually came from the private sector. He was a very successful businessman. And before he took office, he had negotiated with several companies to come move their headquarters to Connecticut, bring jobs to Connecticut. He is now running for his third term, and to date, none of those companies have actually come here. To Lamont's credit, he has actually fought to try to improve the economic development of the state. And
train left the station.
And he has been thwarted at every turn by his own party. Ned Lamont is a Democrat, and the Democrat Party keeps pushing things through to make it harder and harder for businesses to compete here in Connecticut. And Lamont has vetoed some of these things, and they've come back. They keep coming back. They keep trying to push them through. The Connecticut Democratic Party, and in fairness, they are basically taking their cues from the Democratic National Committee, that they are focused on destroying business. Take a look at New York City.
Oh, God.
Take a look at what Mamdani has done and what he's proposing. He wants to make it impossible to do business in the city.
Okay, extrapolating a little bit on that, I see, it's happening now, and not, I think it's going to accelerate exponentially the business exodus and population exodus out of New York. I mean, why would even Wall Street, I know it's named after the street, but why would you continue being there? You're just going to get gouged. It's crazy.
Well, even the stock markets, who are located on Wall Street and have been for years, have started moving operations to Texas. There is now an 11-state consortium almost going from Texas to Florida that is being referred to as the Boom Belt. Yep. And the Boom Belt is responsible for more economic activity and a greater GDP than any country in the world, with the possible exception of the US as a whole and China. Blows California out of the water. California used to be an economic powerhouse. It's now been neutered.
You bring up this is an amazing point, because it does point to the Democratic Party, and let's just cut the crap. It's a socialist / communist organization now. If it doesn't get its shit together, it's got real problems, because like Kathy Hochul, I don't know what she was smoking. Try to entice people from Florida to move back. Like, Oh yeah, that's going to happen. Smoke another joint. And
Well,
speaking, go ahead.
that was actually a brilliant example, because Kathy Hochul, if you're trying to entice people to move from Florida to New York, the way you do it is you put programs forward to benefit those people. You make it easier on taxes. You focus on economic development. What Kathy Hochul actually did was say, we need you to come back
And
because
write a check.
we need your tax money to subsidize our social programs. It's like, no, these folks aren't going to get any benefit from coming back to New York. And Kathy Hochul didn't even mince words about that. She was very honest about the fact that, yes, we need you to come back because our plans have failed miserably and we need you to bail us out.
And what you bring up is the salient point. It's in their DNA. They don't understand business. They don't like business. They just think that for some crazy pie in the sky theory that people will just come back out of patriot, whatever. It's insane. But speaking of the Democratic Party, you have Alan Dershowitz. I believe he's 89 years old, long time liberal Dem, pulled the plug on the Democratic Party and did not become an independent, but actual Republican. A Jewish American, obviously. I think I was waiting for that for quite a while. Your thoughts on that? It just goes into the whole situation with the transformation, the evolution of the Democratic Party, which I know actually started with Barack Hussein Obama. And now it's at the point we have an 89-year-old liberal Democrat saying the anti-Semitism is just too much. I don't think he's going to be the first or the last.
No, he's not the first. He won't be the last. We keep quoting Bill Maher saying this. The Democratic Party has left the traditional Democrats behind.
Yes.
And now they are realizing there's no path forward within the party. Many of them are shifting to independents. Some are shifting to the Republican Party. There are now more third parties being formed. Now, I don't hold out a lot of hope for any of these small third parties, but the fact of the matter is more and more of these folks are turning their back on the Democratic Party because take a look at the results. How can you describe the current mindset of the Democratic Party without using the words socialist, anti-Semitic, communist? I mean,
how about insane?
This is what the party has become. And even Barack Obama has stopped pretending that he's not a massive leftist.
There you go.
He's now out there with Zoran Mandami. He is championing the left, and it is getting worse. There is now a brand new organization. I cannot remember the name of it off the top of my head. That is good. It only started a few weeks ago, if that. But they are the left-wing version of Turning Point USA. They are going to colleges to try to convince college students that they need to go further to the left. And this organization was founded.
Is that possible?
This organization was founded by diehard Bernie Sanders staffers.
Which is one of the most despicable people on earth. And him and Barack Hussein Obama are the stewards of the Democratic Party's collapse.
And let's take a look at the actions that the Democratic Party has been taking just over the past few weeks. We talked about the redistricting in Virginia. Why? Because they were on the verge of losing Virginia, especially since Governor Spamberger has the lowest approval rating of a Virginia governor in history at this point in her term. On top of that, you have them actively fighting against requiring voter ID.
Because they can't win legitimately.
Exactly, because if you actually have to fight voter fraud, that's the Democratic Party's key campaign maneuver. And we know this is happening. And I find it absolutely hysterical. You mentioned Chris Murphy earlier. I find it absolutely hysterical that Chris Murphy is fighting so hard against voter ID when his home state of Connecticut requires voter ID at the ballots. On top of that, Chris Murphy himself has been named by indicted Democrats in the Bridgeport area who have been indicted on voter fraud. Chris Murphy has been named as one of the beneficiaries of voter fraud.
No question. He also said in one of his amazing brain farts, said that undocumented or illegal aliens are at the center of the Democratic Party's concern.
And that's the problem. The Democratic Party doesn't care about Americans anymore. If you were born here, doesn't matter what your race, creed, color, religion is. If you were born here, they don't care.
Agreed 100%. Now, we just got out of tax season, Dr. Lopkin. And a funny thing happened to me, kind of a little bit depressing for me. Last year, my net worth was $35 million. And now I'm worth just a mere trickle of that now. And how that happened, I don't know. I looked at it. I never flinched, and I never called my tax person and said, wow, I'm worth 35 million. I just signed it. And then when it got back and it's a fraction of that, I signed it as well and didn't even blink. And what I'm really referring to is our friend Omar in Minnesota. I mean, if this is not indictable, then I just give up. I don't even understand it. And she says, I didn't know, whatever. She's not the brightest bulb either, by the way. She said something like, oh, it wasn't really assets. I can't even follow her explanation. But could you please shed some light on that, Dr. Lopkin?
Yeah, Ilhan Omar recently filed an amended financial return because all Congress people are required to fill out these declarations stating how much they're worth. And we talked about it earlier about how suddenly while she's been serving in Congress, has made $100 million. Now he's got this amended return. All of a sudden, oh no, that $100 million filing was an error. It's like, really? That's one hell of an error.
Yeah, I can understand, like, okay. Oh, the house? Yeah, it's a $5,000, error. There's no such thing. A $30 million error.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. And I mean, it goes back.
She's not bright. She's arrogant and stupid. That's what it is.
We know that Minnesota has been ripe with fraud, stealing federal money and channeling it. We know some of it was channeled to Somalia, but Ilhan Omar is intrinsically involved in all of this because all of the programs that were involved in the fraud came from legislation that she was championing.
Shocking. Well, I will see how it plays. I think she really, before it was just right-wing BS on like podcasts and YouTube about her being deported, whatever. I think it's becoming more of a potential reality. In closing, Dr. Lopkin?
It definitely is more of a reality, especially given the events from the House Oversight Committee over the last couple of weeks. We have had three Congress people, 2 Democrats, 1 Republican, who left their seats because of corruption charges. We have another Republican congressperson who is being investigated. There are, I believe, 6 other investigations going on to Congress people. Now, let's also not forget the fact, and this, I'm amazed that this seems to have gone unnoticed by the mainstream media, but Congress overwhelmingly, a few weeks ago, shot down a bill that would require transparency on the congressional slush fund for paying off victims of sexual harassment in Congress.
But it's funny, but it's not funny because it's such, we're on our 250th anniversary birthday of America. What the founding fathers envisioned for public service and what's happened over the last 80 years has no connection at all. They're not working for us. They're working for themselves. Like many, Pelosi, they go in worth 150,000 on the lower end of where they should be at their particular station in life. And now just magically they're worth 250 million. Oh, yeah. Okay. That happens all the time on a $100,000 salary. Happens all the time.
Sure.
Mhm.
Well, you mentioned the founding fathers. I mean, the founding fathers envisioned public service as just that.
Yeah.
You were supposed to have an actual job. You were supposed to support your family. And then to support your country, you were supposed to run for office, run for a term or two, and then go back to your job and family. Politics was never meant to be a career path. And that's what it's become.
And by the way, you look at all the upheaval in the private sector through technology, other things. Actually, I'd have to say one of the few remaining professions, if you want to call it a profession, that's not only pretty stable in terms of longevity, but one of the most lucrative is being a congressperson.
Well,
hedge fund is bullshit. What are you kidding me?
You have to remember that a congressperson is one of the few jobs that requires virtually no skill.
Zero.
I mean, there's no manual labor involved. You don't have to figure out how to put things together. Most congressional, never mind candidates, most Congress people show up most of the time. Most of them don't even show up on a continuous basis. They say yay or nay to something. They don't even read the bill that they're actually voting on.
They're told what they're saying, and they go out for drinks.
Exactly.
And by the way, for the Connecticut, so-called the intelligentsia state, along with some of the others like Massachusetts, we got some dumbass representatives. Larson, I'm saying IQ of maybe like an 80. York representative, the 84-year-old with the
Rosa DeLauro, yes,
a moron. And then you have circling back everything in life circle. Chris Murphy walked away from a house and a wife, and now he's on to bigger and better things. Just walked away from a house. A brilliant guy. Yep.
Yeah, left the house underwater. Decided he didn't want to pay the mortgage anymore.
Why
so he abandoned it.
Yeah, why do that?
Left his wife. Fought her over child support, alimony, didn't want to pay any money. And this is who thinks he's representing America.
There you go. Well, Dr. Lopkin, another great edition of Carnivore Radio. We'll be back next week. Our listeners can contribute to the process as always, can't they?
Yes, let us know what you have to say. What's on your mind? You can go to xvadio.com/connect. You can also contact us, message us through the Carnivore Radio Facebook page. And of course, you can catch every episode of Carnivore Radio at xvadio.com, the Carnivore Radio website, the Apple Podcast app, YouTube, Rumble, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible, Amazon Music, and other platforms that respect freedom of speech.
We'll see you next week, Dr. Lopkin.
We'll see you then.